Hey everybody, and welcome to the next edition of the Soccer Fitness Goals video blog. It's been another busy week for us here, and of course it's always busy for us during the month of March. But we have the March break coming up next week, and if you know me or you've trained with me or worked with me, then you know that I don't like the March break. And the reason I don't like it is because it's an unneeded and unnecessary diversion and interruption from a young athlete's regular training schedule during a period of time which is approaching the preseason in soccer, and that's a period of time where the last thing any athlete needs is a break. In addition to that, another reason why I don't like the March break is that a lot of times what happens with youth soccer clubs or academies is that rather than just going ahead and keeping to their regular weekly schedule during this time period, instead what they do is they schedule camps that are all day long, 9 a.m. to 3 or 4 p.m. every day of the week, and basically they just overload the kids with a much higher volume of training than what they're used to. And this isn't really productive because in the end, a high volume in a short period of time isn't going to give you any improvements in anything, in fitness and technical ability and tactical knowledge or understanding of the game. It's just going to lead to overtraining, and at the minimum overtraining, and if not, then there's a significantly higher risk of injury. So in any case, I'm not here to talk about the March break this week, but if you're getting ready for that time period, my advice to you is just treat it like a normal week. Don't do any more or less soccer training or fitness training than you normally do. That's what we're doing at Soccer Fitness this week. We're going to just be open from Monday to Friday evening, and anybody who comes in to train is just coming in to train, nothing extra. However, for the blog this week, we're going to be discussing some of the recent UEFA Champions League games. It was a really crazy week of games, including what I believe was the greatest comeback in terms of the margin of goals against, the greatest comeback in UEFA Champions League history, with Barcelona beating PSG. That game had everything, including some controversial penalty calls, some excellent individual plays and efforts for goals by both teams, and some drama at the end of the game where Barcelona, I believe, scored the last 3 goals with about 5 or 6 minutes to go in regulation. However, again, we're not going to talk about that game. We're going to talk about 2 other games, one which was Napoli versus Real Madrid, the second leg, and the other is the second leg of Borussia Dortmund versus Benfica. And the reason we're going to talk about those games is because both of them turned on a key issue with defending in soccer right now, which is teams' ability, or in this case inability, to accurately and appropriately defend corner kicks. So, first of all, why is defending corner kicks so important? The reason is that set pieces account for a statistically significant amount of goals that teams concede across all major leagues, including the Champions League, and we'll put some statistics up to show you that. And furthermore, of all the different set pieces, corner kicks are usually accounting for the greatest amount of goals that come out of set pieces. And again, we'll show you some stats to back this up. But the reality is that for a top-level team, if they're not able to defend corner kicks well, then there's a very good chance that they're going to concede goals from corner kicks, and this was the case in both of these Champions League games that we mentioned. So we will start by looking at the game between Borussia Dortmund and Benfica. So this was the second leg. If you recall, we did an analysis of the first leg of that game where Benfica pulled off a bit of an upset but had some pretty successful strategy and tactics in that game. So in this game, we knew that Dortmund needed to go ahead and attack more, and they did, and they earned a corner relatively early in the game. And we will show the the footage of the corner kick that happened here. But what you'll see is that it was played to the near post, and this was probably a rehearsed and well practiced corner kick for them, because they got the ball to the near post and it was flicked on. And Aubameyang, who is their top striker and one of the leading goal scorers in the Bundesliga, was left unmarked as he ran over to the far post and leapt in to score the header. So this is a top striker in Europe and he was left unmarked by the Benfica defense. We'll look at some other examples of defending corner kicks where the defending overall was a little bit better than this, but still mistakes were made. But in this particular case, you can see that he just runs to the far post and he's completely unmarked. So for a team like Benfica at that level, playing in the Champions League, and they know who they're playing against, they know that they're playing against a top striker, to leave that player unmarked in the box is just inexcusable. And in the end, that cost them. This opened up the game for Dortmund. Benfica at that point knew that a draw on aggregate wasn't going to be good enough for them, and so they had to end up pushing more players forward. And in the long run, Dortmund was the better team, and Aubameyang actually ended up getting a hat trick to win that game. But it all started with poor defensive marking and leaving a player unmarked at the far post on a corner kick. So the second example of poor defending of corner kicks that we're going to talk about happened in the game, which was the second leg between Napoli and Real Madrid. And if anybody wants to go back and watch the first half of that game, you'll see an excellent performance by Napoli. They scored a goal, so they won the half, but they also completely outplayed Madrid. They had more possession. They were able to press in the middle third of the field and disrupt Madrid's attempts to counter. They did an excellent job. Again, the game turned in the second half because Napoli was unable to deal with Madrid's corner kicks. We're going to show the highlights of both of the corners, and both of them were scored after the kick. They were scored by Sergio Ramos, who, he's the captain of Madrid and a top center back in the world. And he's also really good in the air and has scored a lot of key goals off of corner kicks. So he's another one that certainly the Napoli defense should have been well aware of and should have been looking out for. But the defensive strategy that Napoli used on their corner kicks, and we'll show it here, but is basically that they put a line of defenders just outside of the 6-yard box who were sort of defending zones. They weren't man marking. I'm sure they had a man that they were assigned to mark, but what they weren't doing was man marking in the sense that they were very, very close, or what we would call touch tight, marking the Real Madrid players in the box. And the problem with this type of strategy, even though you have players that are responsible for specific zones, what they're basically doing is standing relatively still and waiting for the ball to be delivered into the zone that they're marking, and then trying to make sure that no man from the other team is able to get into that zone and beat them to the ball. And again, we'll show both corners. One came from one side and the other from the other side of the pitch, but in both instances, Sergio Ramos was able to run into the zone where he was technically being marked by a Napoli player, but he outleapt that player and scored with his head both times. In my opinion, a better strategy to defend corners in general, and specifically with a player like Ramos, who's so good in the air and so notorious for scoring goals from corner kicks, would be, rather than to stand in a line, would be to have man marking from the get-go, which is touch tight. And that literally involves, as a defender, getting both of your arms in a position where your goal side and your arms are in a position where you're actually preventing a lot of movement from that player. You're so close to them that you can actually touch the player with your hands. Not to grab the shirt or foul, but to literally keep your hands and keep them in front of you the whole time, so that as the ball is approaching and you'll be backing up, you're going to be able to get a bit of a running start, and you're going to be able to jump with that player to try to at least contest the header, if not actually win it. And it may be difficult to win all of the headers against a player like Sergio Ramos, but certainly by giving yourself a bit of a running start, you'd be able to jump a little bit higher, and you'd be able to contest and disrupt and prevent him from getting such a clean header on goal, which again was what he got both times. He got a clean header on goal and he scored 2 goals. And Madrid added a third goal later in the game, but really it's those 2 goals that just opened it up. It made it 4-1 or 4-2 actually, and then 5-2 on aggregate. So really made it impossible for Napoli to come back. So to summarize, we know that there's a very good chance that a goal will be scored from a corner kick in almost every game you play. So if you're a coach preparing to play against another team, and especially if that team you're going to be playing against has players who are known for scoring goals from corner kicks, it definitely makes sense for you to have a good strategy in terms of how you're going to defend those corner kicks. I think it makes more sense not to have players marking in zones, but rather to have those players man marking. So the only player that I would recommend to be marking in a zone would be the player that's put on the near post. And that player is there basically to prevent a goal from an in-swinging corner kick or from any other shots or headers that come into the near post. Other than that, it probably makes more sense to have the rest of the defenders in the box man marking to the point where they're touch tight. And again, this allows them to have a physical advantage so they can get a better running start when they have to jump to contest crosses that come in. At the minimum, they can contest the cross and prevent a good clean header on goal. And in the best case scenario, they can actually get up and win the ball and prevent the shot from coming in altogether. So that's it for the Soccer Fitness Goals video blog this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We'll see you next time, and until then, keep reaching your soccer fitness goals.